What went wrong? It's missing the point. It's lacking heart. I want to talk about what went right. Adaptation of Avatar the Last Airbender has gotten a lot of mixed reviews. As someone who has been a very big Avatar the Last Airbender fan since like 2005, 2006, I've been in it. I've been in it with you guys.
It's been 84 years.
While I do have like my own critiques, I want to talk about the things that really worked for me. From the bending to the casting to the extra scenes that they added and so much more. I'm going to talk about everything that I think this show did really, really well. If you're new here, my name is Crystal Kyber. I usually talk about Star Wars and now Avatar the Last Airbender, and I do my makeup at the same time. If those are things that interest you, you might want to subscribe, stay a while, hang out with me. When Netflix announced their live action adaptation, I think we were all wondering, how do you take a seemingly perfect story? How do you build upon that? How do you make it better without taking away from the story that's already laid out for you? You add context. One of the best things I think that this show did is add context to stories and characters that I think really benefited. I think it just makes the story so much more rich and full, and it kind of adds like volume to the show. I think that these three examples are just, let's get into it. The first scene I really want to talk about is the scene with the Airbenders in the Southern Air Temple. The opening scene with all the Airbenders really took me for a ride. It was completely unexpected. And while in the animation we do see Aang, who is like an amazing airbender and a master at his bending style, we don't really get to see the Airbenders at their best, at their prime. We don't get a sense of their culture or who they are as a people, except from Aang, told through like his memories. The live action show does really, really well is show us the Airbenders at their best. We see a lot of airbending, and I don't know about you, but I thought that was so sick. Not only do we get a sense of the Airbenders as a people and Aang's relationship with those people, but we also get to see the massacre of the Airbenders, which was really, really tragic. Again, unexpected. We had the scenes of the Airbenders fighting the Fire Nation with Aang and Appa in the storm, fighting for their lives. The reason why it works so well with those scenes being cut together, it's because there's like so much unease. Aang ran away from the air temple. He thinks that he's gonna come back. Like he's blowing off some steam, and he doesn't know that the Fire Nation was attacking the Airbenders at that very moment. And then the Airbenders like Gyatso are being attacked by the Fire Nation, and the Avatar, Aang, is nowhere to be found. It's like so tragic. Both scenes interchangeably cut. I was like, oh my god, this is so sad. In the animation, that doesn't happen at the same time, and we don't really find out what happened to Aang. Like we don't really get the full story until 12 episodes, and that's where we kind of learn about Aang's loneliness and him being excluded from his friends, which I think is sad in its own right, and it does have like a lot of weight and it does speak to his character. But I think the scene of Aang running away and then the Fire Nation attacking that night, I think it just adds more weight when the story is laid out in this way with these two scenes happening side by side. It really drives home the idea of destiny, which Avatar the Last Airbender is really big on destiny. It just like, it hit a little bit different than the animation. They did a really good job. This is a decision that I really was excited about. And like I said, to see the Airbenders like do their thing, so sick. Speaking of Airbenders, let's talk about Gyatso. I love that Gyatso became more of a prominent figure in the live action. I love Gyatso. I love his character. I love what he is to Aang. I feel like in the live action, it made their relationship a lot more special, which I really love seeing them interact. I love the conversations they had. And I also think it made the loss of the Airbenders like a lot more personal to Aang and a lot more personal to us as viewers. Personally, I really loved seeing Gyatso in the spirit world, in his little hut, like waiting for Aang for 100 years. Like if that doesn't bring you to tears, like I don't know what to tell you. That was so sad and like heartwarming at the same time. Gyatso has been waiting there for 100 years. Aang shows up and, you know, he has to go save his friends, and Gyatso doesn't stop him, and he knows that this is like the last time that he's gonna see Aang, but he lets him go. The love that this man has for Aang, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. They really nailed the relationships in this show. It was sad when Aang came back and the little hut was empty. I was devastated. That whole part about Gyatso being in the hut in the spirit world, I really felt like that could have been in the animation. Can they go back and add that in? Because, I don't know, it fits so well with the story. In my head, it's part of the animation. In my head, that happened. Like, that's how well done I think that was. That's real, it's canon. Another wise old figure that I love talking about is Uncle Iroh. Iroh was gonna be a hard sell for me. I think Iroh was gonna be the hardest sell for me from any character. I just have so much love for him, and I know that the community does as well. Like, Iroh is a fan favorite. It's cool when Iroh's story is revealed to you, even from the very beginning. There's like these little nuggets that are dropped that you pick up along the way as a fan, and every time you rewatch it, the story just gets bigger and bigger. At least for me, that's my experience. The pieces, they just all fall together, and he's just so special. Like, who doesn't love Iroh? I want to talk to them. I just want to know. Of course, one of the standout episodes from the show is from the anthology Tales of Ba Sing Se, The Tale of Iroh. And at the end of the episode, we find out that Iroh is celebrating his late son's birthday. It kind of becomes a metaphor for Iroh helping his son, Lu Ten, along the way through the different stages of his life, even when he could no longer help him anymore. As the stages of my life progress, the more I'm like, oh my god. In that episode with the Tales of Iroh, there's a song that plays in the background that Iroh sings at the very end of the episode called Leaves from the Vine, and it is tragic. It is so sad, and that song has its own real life tragic story behind it. I won't get into it right now. You can look it up, but damn. I love Paul Sung-Hung Lee as an actor. Since I was first introduced to him in Star Wars, like, I've been rooting for him. But even still, when I found out that Paul was gonna be Iroh, I was a little apprehensive. And while at first Paul's Iroh, like, didn't really do anything for me, like, I said, he was gonna be a hard sell. I feel like his Iroh really grew on me as the show went on. I might have been judging him a little too harsh, but at first, like, I really didn't like his Iroh. I was like, dude, that is not how Iroh talks or acts, or that is not Iroh. I really did find myself loving Paul's Iroh. I think he did a great job, but that's not the context that I wanted to talk about. But then episode 4 happened, and bro, that episode had me in tears. I cried really hard multiple times. Picture this. I'm watching episode 4, minding my own business, and then the funeral scene comes on. This is definitely not a scene that is in the animation, and I think this scene it really showed the relationship between Iroh and his brother, who would later go on to use this tragedy for his own gain and his own benefit to surpass his older brother to becoming the Fire Lord, like a rat. It also shows Iroh's relationship with the Fire Nation people and the Fire Nation in itself when this couple comes up to give their condolences, but they kind of like shame him, and it kind of shows Iroh falling from grace in the eyes of the Fire Nation. It also demonstrates his relationship with Zuko, who is naive and young at this point, but who had a real connection to Lu Ten, Iroh's son. It's really about the innocence of Zuko and how he's the only person who was truly there for Iroh during like the most devastating time in Iroh's life. And then they have the audacity to play Leaves from the Vine over this long shot of Iroh. And oh my god, dude, this broke me. Oh my god. I could not believe it. I could not believe that this show went there. Iroh is just sitting there like such a proud man, and it's Leaves from the Vine, and then there's like a single tear that sheds, and I was like losing my mind. I could not believe it. I cried so much. Like, there's so much context that this scene adds. It's so crazy. Dude, they did that. I don't know if you know anything about Asian culture or if you yourself are Asian, but it's like a big deal for Asian men to be very like strong and proud, and he's the firstborn son, which is like a very big deal in a lot of Asian cultures, like Filipinos. And that shot of him just like holding his chin up and like How dare they? Okay, where's my powder? Yeah, I think that scene adds so much context, and I just couldn't believe it. At first I thought it was like too early to be talking about Liu 10 and showing Iroh's soft side, but they did it so well. Something that I really appreciated about the funeral scene was the costuming. It's typical in some Eastern cultures to wear white when you're at a funeral or when you're in mourning. In my own family, when an elder has passed away, we've worn white to funerals. If you don't know, I'm Filipino, and I think also maybe this is why it hit so hard for me personally, but it made it so real to me because I've had that experience. They really got that right. I know not every culture does that, and even in the Philippines, not every Filipino area does that. Like, there are a lot of different areas of the Philippines. They have a lot of different kinds of traditions. So it was very like visceral for me. When they did that, I knew that they put a lot of thought and care into like the culture and the costumes that they're choosing. I really love the costuming in this production. I think that the translation from animation to live action is so well done. The costume department killed it. I love that the costume's so vibrant against a more natural or like real feeling world, and then you have like a kid wearing bright yellow and bright orange. I love that. I love that it's very true to the animation. I was really afraid they were going to change that, but they did a really good job of making it feel real. It's like really the details that I think make the show. One of the details that I really loved is the tattoos. The tattoos on the Airbenders looked so good. First of all, I love that it was like a solid blue arrow and it had like some kind of intricate designs in it. I loved that it was like this bright blue tattoo that they all had. I also like that on the older Airbenders, their tattoos were kind of faded. They weren't as sharp. They looked older. They weren't as vibrant. To me, that says they put a lot of research and care into the way that this turned out. Fresh tattoos do not look the same as when they do, even when they're like a year old, let alone if someone has had their tattoos for like 20 or 30 years. My palm tattoos are 7 years old at this point, and tattoos move and migrate and they expand. And I love that they added just that little bit of storytelling in the tattoos. I think that the makeup department did such a good job with that. I myself am a makeup artist. I work in productions. It's very easy for me to get taken out of the immersion when I see bad makeup or when I see makeup that doesn't really fit. On the other side, it really makes me like appreciate the work that goes into something like this. They really thought about that. Makeup and wardrobe did such a good job. Now, I wish I could say the same about the wigs because the wigs were awful. I'm not going to get into it because this video is about what I liked and what I think they got right, and they did not get the wigs right. Something else they got right in this show is the heavily Asian cast. That is so important for a show that is based around Asian cultures. While there's not one Asian culture that is tied to a specific nation, and I could really make a whole video just talking about the intricacies of the Avatar world that they built and the Asian references throughout the whole show. Like, for example, you have like a lot of Chinese philosophy that is around the whole Avatar world. It's not just like, you know, Fire Nation and Earth Nation were inspired by China. It's kind of like bits and pieces taken to create this world. I think that that is something that this show got right, was taking into consideration that this is an Asian inspired show. Like, this is an Asian show. I know it like sounds so ridiculous saying it now, but it has to be said. You know, they really tried to cast people that were in the right culture. You know, Katara and Sokka are indigenous people. They casted indigenous people for like the Water Tribe. They casted Southeast Asian people for the Fire Nation. They casted a lot of different people for the Earth Nation, which I really liked that, because Asian people aren't just like your typical like Japanese and Korean people. Like, brown Asian people exist too. And I always say that like Filipinos, Guamanians, Indian people are often forgotten when it comes to like the representation of Asia. I also really appreciate that there was a lot of Asians behind the scenes. I think that that is very important, and I think that's how we avoid pandering to an audience. Put Asian people behind the camera. Put Asian people in charge of things. And I think that's really important for like any marginalized group, whether it's people of color or the people in the LGBTQIA community. Have them in the writer's room. Have them directing. Have them working in the different departments. Paul, the actor who plays Iroh, talked about how cool it is to be in a space where there's just so much of care and appreciation for Asian people and Asian culture in a set that is about Asian people in Asian cultures. I just really want to emphasize that the show got that right. And I'm not saying don't have white people in it or having white people a part of this. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, like, let's include more of the people that the show is about. You feel me? The martial arts and the bending, girl, so sick. Like, let's just talk about the bending for a second, because this was like so important for a show that really centers martial arts. The martial arts in Avatar the Last Airbender, the animation, is inspired by Chinese martial arts, different styles of Chinese martial arts, and they have like their own riz to them. They have like their own character to them. I think that the show did that so well, like so good. I know a few people that do martial arts, like practice it, and they were saying that it was amazing. And I don't know about you, but for me, the martial arts and the bending was something that I was like really looking forward to as an Avatar fan and someone who wishes that like bending was real. You know, when every time I go to the beach and I'm in the ocean, I'm a waterbender. Like, me and my best friend went to the beach and we were waterbending at each other because we're grown adults and we're living our best lives. We're waterbenders. Shout out to Aaron. Seeing the bending, oh my God, it was so sick. The fire bending, even though I'm not a firebender, the firebending looks the coolest. You cannot deny. And like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, watching the Airbenders be Airbenders was like so sick, so sick. I saw a video title and it was like, do we even need live action adaptations of Avatar? For the bending that we saw on this show, yes. We would do it again too. That was the coolest part. You cannot sit there and tell me that that didn't look sick. This show to me felt so alive. It felt so lived in. It felt like a world that exists, which I think is very special and very cool. They had actual sets. They had an art department, which I feel like a lot of shows is missing these days. I know now that I've seen a lot of behind the scenes things, and they did use green screen and they use technology similar to the volume, but what I liked is that they didn't rely on them. It was more as like a supplemental thing, which I think is the best way to do it in my opinion. The attention to detail that they put in this show was just so good. They really killed it. Just, it all works together so well. They really came together to tell an amazing story. Personally, I really would have preferred if they stayed closer to the source material. And there were some decisions and choices that I was really confused by, and I didn't really understand why they deviated from the story like that. And some of the changes just, it didn't sit right with me. But overall, I think that they did a good job adapting something from animation to live action. I know that you can't keep everything in an adaptation and you kind of have to like move things around and things have to translate into live action. I think overall it was fine. I think that the way that they blended certain plot points and storylines together made sense for a live action. For example, the Omashu plotline where you have Jet and the Freedom Fighters, Mechanist, Boomy, have the Cave of Two Lovers, you have Iroh's capture, and you have that all put together in like one city, and it's very convenient. And I think it makes for an interesting arc within the show. Like, it made sense for the animation, and I think it made it more exciting for us as the viewers to have like these different plot lines going on at the same time. Though I do think that some of this did undermine the animation. And what I mean by that is you have Jet, who is a freedom fighter, and Katara, you know, gets a little crush on him. Can't blame her. Comes forward that he's gonna like sacrifice or kill a bunch of Fire Nation people. And Katara makes this decision to save the Fire Nation people. Even though she hates the Fire Nation, even though she thinks that they're all murderers, even though she's trying to impress Jet, makes the decision to save the enemy. And I think that that is like such a big moment for Katara. I think that speaks a lot for her character, and it really shows us who Katara is in that moment and her morals and her ethics, especially in a time of war. In the live action, it kind of doesn't happen that way. Jet is going to sacrifice Earth people in the name of his movement. And then Katara chooses to save the Earth people and get away from Jet, but it doesn't have like the same impact of Jet trying to kill Fire Nation people, like innocent Fire Nation people, and Katara standing up to him. There's not like this morality or this like ethical struggle within Katara and with us, the audience, right? Because we hate the Fire Nation too. In the live action, it kind of takes away that moment for Katara, and it very much paints Jet as the bad guy instead of like this morally gray character. There are a lot of things like that live action kind of like missed its mark, and you know, sometimes I'm like, why did you change that? It's right there. The animation is right there. But with all that being said, I think that they did a good job. Another thing that I like that this show did was the callbacks and the Easter eggs to the animation. They reference Kangaroo Island. They talk about the pit. They talk about the pirates. You see Flopsy, who's Boomy's animal. There are a lot of things that they took from the animation that I feel like they honored in live action, which as a fan, I really, really appreciate that. To me, as a fan, it really feels like they have care for what they're doing. I think they know that the Avatar fandom and community is like not only so protective of it, but like we're ride or dies. Like we will go in on this show. But I don't know. That's just like what I think. And moving forward, since we are getting 2 more seasons, the second book and the third book, I really, really, really hope that they stay a little bit closer to the source material. I think that's all I want. And while I think this show was really good, I do have my issues with it. There are a lot of things that I just don't really understand why we took certain character traits from certain characters. Why did you do that? Why is this happening? Why are we missing these? Why is this character from book 2 and book 1? If you stayed a little bit closer to the source material, it would be better for the show. And ultimately, like, I do want a better show. Like I said, I really enjoyed this show. I've watched it multiple times at this point, but I want it to be better. Like, I want the show to get better and better and better. And I think one way to do that is to stay closer to the source material. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts about the new Avatar the Last Airbender show, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, the good, bad, the ugly. Let me know. I want to hang out and I want to talk to you about Avatar the Last Airbender. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and Water Tribe.